would all be the first to admit, we're not perfect, right? Don't you hear that all the time? I'm not perfect. I'm only human, our favorite response to excuse our failings. In fact, if God were to honestly grade us, if we got a report card during this past year on how we've lived our lives, we would have to confess that in some areas we've earned an F. And yet, whoever really admittedly fails, do anybody admit it anymore in the world? Think about it. Raising our children these days, parents are told by experts, criticism is destructive for their self-esteem. Don't you criticize your children. We should only make them feel good about themselves so that they will feel happy and self-contented. The experts tell us as parents we should never crush their spirits by telling them they failed or they could have done better. See, brothers and sisters, it's all about rewards today. Yeah. Everybody gets a trophy. Yeah. Everybody is on the A team. There's never criticism. There's never punishment anymore. I don't see punishment.
Trust me, it's gone.
I don't see it. And the same attitude has infected the classroom as well. It's all about just trying hard these days rather than genuinely succeeding. Avoiding the risk of their feeling bad for failing, kids today are no longer graded on performance as much as they are graded on just their effort. Brothers and sisters, on this Ne'ilah, we need to acknowledge, honestly, our weaknesses, and we need to acknowledge our failings if we are to ever improve and become what we are capable of becoming. Could it be that the real secret to success is failing? I was thinking to myself, do you realize that most sort of well-known pastors that you probably all get all gaga about, do you know that most of them,
Nope.
their first ministry as a congregation has failed miserably? Try, I go down the list. Chuck Swindoll, Jack Hafer, John Wimber. I just go down the list. Their first attempts at ministry failed. What if we need to keep score in our own lives and to acknowledge our errors, our weaknesses, and our failings if we are ever to improve and become what we are capable of becoming? The New York Times article, it's an eye-opener because it forces us to confront what previous generations knew, and we just, for some reason, have chosen to forget that recognizing our shortcomings is the only way to achieve success in life. Know your shortcomings, know your limitations. To learn how to fail is nothing less than a succinct 5-letter summary of what Yom Kippur, the confession that we do on Yom Kippur, is all about. See, it requires something that we struggle with today. You know what we struggle with today? Maturity. Maturity. We have to be mature enough to face up to our personal failings, which well-meaning parents and teachers and friends try to shield us from never recognizing. Even fellow believers. Oh no, brother, you haven't failed. You tried hard. As for me, I would tell you, hey, you failed. You screwed up that. You did. And I think that's important because we need to acknowledge our failings and shortcomings. We need to come face to face with them. It asks us to admit that we're not perfect precisely because we're willing to take on the challenge of perfecting ourselves. See, in Yom Kippur, we have to define ourselves in light of a concept that Benjamin Barber, who's a political science at Rutgers, believes is an ultimate truth about human behavior. And that is, we love to categorize people, especially by labeling them by one of the two distinct different characteristics. Like, for example, this person's smart, this one's dumb. This one's good, this one's bad. This one's a success, oh, they're a failure. But there is one division of people that Barber claims is the most crucial and correct way to differentiate between them. He says, and I quote, "I don't divide the world into the weak and strong, or the successes and the failures, those who make it or those who don't. I divide the world into learners and non-learners. Those who acknowledge their failures, they learn from them, and move forward, as opposed to those who can't admit ever having done anything wrong. Never learn from their mistakes and doom themselves to reliving the errors of their ways. And that's why on Yom Kippur, brothers and sisters, when we are asked to reflect upon whether our lives can be considered a success, we're judged by whether we're courageous enough to confess our sins and to admit our failures. Rabbi Shaul taught us that in 2 Corinthians 13:5, examine yourselves to see whether you are living the life of trust. Test yourself. To acknowledge to God and to ourselves where we've gone wrong in our lives. It doesn't diminish us. If anything, doing so helps us to grow and improve. Some of you might remember a U.S. Senator years back from California, Hayakawa. Besides being a senator, he was a specialist in semantics. I think it's a lost art today, semantics.
True.
And he alerted us to an all-important distinction between two English words that most of us assume are identical. And this is quoting Hayakawa. He says, notice the difference between what happens when a person says to himself, I have failed 3 times. I have failed. I have failed. And what happens when they say, I am a failure.
Yeah.
To think of yourself as a failure is to create a perpetual self-image as a loser.
Right.
But if you learn from your experience, if your failure inspires you to surpass yourself and do it better next time, if you understand that failure is merely a momentary event but doesn't define you, then you are an alumnus of the best school in the world. And your failure was the tuition you paid for your eventual success.
Yes. Amen.
Rabbi Shaul encouraged the servants of Messiah Yeshua with these words in 2 Corinthians 13:6, the next verse. But I hope you will realize that we are not failures. We have failed, but we are not failures.
That's right.
On Yom Kippur, we evaluate ourselves by scrutinizing our failings. On Yom Kippur, we don't deny our sins. We build on their memory for spiritual growth and maturity. On Yom Kippur, we realize the truth. The truth that failure, acknowledging it, learning from it, and rising from it is truly the secret to success. Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavdir shana me'enei u'tenuma me'afat peh. V'hi ratzon mil fanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu. Shetargilenu b'toratecha v'darkenu b'mitzvotecha v'al teve'enu lo lidei chet v'lo lidei avara v'avaron v'lo lidei nisaon v'lo lidei vizalion v'al tashlit banu yetzer hara. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who removes sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids. And may it be your will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, to accustom us to your Torah and attach us to your mitzvah, and do not lead us into the hands of sin, nor into the hands of pride or perversity, not into the hands of temptation, nor into the hands of shame. Do not let the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, rule over us. Together, join with me. Gemar Hatamad Tovah Yeshua HaMashiach. May you eternally be sealed in the Lamb's book of life. And now join with me in the Lord's Prayer in English. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.